and welcome back to the 10 questions series, where over the last couple of months, we have found out that much more about some familiar YouTube gardening faces. And hopefully, today's guest is going to be able to let us know a little bit more about him and a little bit more about his background, because I am going to throw 10 questions at him and he has got to answer every single one. So it's really nice to actually be in the position of asking the questions instead of answering them. So I'm going to introduce, well, you know who he is, you can see who he is, but I'm going to ask him to introduce himself to you. So, guest, who are you and what is the name of your channel?
Hey guys, I'm Tony O'Neill from Simplify Gardening.
Well, that was easy. That was really easy.
Simple as
Now,
that.
I've got to say, Tony, when I first came across your channel, was it Tony's Allotment?
Originally it was Tony's Allotment. It then changed to UK Here We Grow,
Yeah.
and then a few years ago I rebranded it to Simplify Gardening.
So you've had a few different entities, a few different
I've been around a long time.
what you would say in a very polite way, you've been round the block. You've been around the
Once or
block.
twice.
But that's brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant. We'll come back to that in a minute, Tony. So, little bit more about you, just for people who may live on another planet. Where do you actually garden, and how long have you been doing it for?
So I garden on an allotment, mainly because my back garden's quite small. So I have an allotment which is literally just across the road from where I live, and I garden on 3 plots which are 195 feet by 28 feet wide each, and they're all next to each other. So it's just one big, huge space. And I've been gardening since I was about 16, but before that, I started gardening around about 7 years old.
So many people, that sort of age is what people tend to remember. Was it your parents? Was it people around you who
No,
encouraged
it's my
you?
grandfather.
Ah, right.
So he's the one who just really brought me into this,
Mm. And you sort of drift away for a few. You hit teenage years, don't you? And you think,
Yeah. I'd sort of from about 12 till about 16, I went off and done my thing,
yeah, yeah.
and then I got another allotment then at 16 and just played around with it a bit. And then I probably got really serious when I was about 22.
Mm.
And I've had allotments since. So,
So
yeah.
that's actually quite young to have an allotment then. Were you the youngest
Yeah.
person on the block?
Well, I had my own allotment at 16.
Wow.
So,
Yeah.
but uh, but I, like it's like everything else. You're just playing around with things and what
Yeah.
have you. And I went to horticulture college, learned a fair bit there, and then I really sort of nailed into it.
Mm.
From the age of about 22 on.
Yeah, yeah. And when you say about you just very casually say you've got an allotment, it's not an allotment, it's half of Wales, isn't it? It's that
It is big, yeah.
yeah, a
I am.
full-size allotment plot over in the UK. I mean, you've just said how big it is, I can't even remember, but it's fairly big anyway. To have 3, my word,
Yeah,
that's huge.
it's a lot of work. Yeah, don't get me wrong, but if you love doing something, you'll do it when you. And I'm very lucky in the fact that I was able to take on land as someone was giving it up. So we have a rule in our allotments that if somebody next to you is giving it up, then you're on the internal list, then you're able to take on more land,
Oh, that's
but
good.
only if it's next to you.
Yeah.
And we have a 2.5 plot rule. So, but Tina's got half a plot in her name.
Ah, okay.
So, but she had to go on the list and wait until it came around to be offered the plot. There was a little bit of strategic movements there, but
Yeah, yeah.
the guy didn't give up until I told him that Tina was the top of the list. So,
Oh,
so
yeah.
it works perfect then.
Mm,
yeah. So it's a lot of work, but I just love
terrific.
doing it.
Well, you wouldn't do it if you didn't, would you? I mean,
No.
Well,
I've literally just come straight from it to here now to talk to you. So
and you'll be going straight back out, I bet, I
I
bet.
will be.
So you've touched on it there. You said about your love for growing and gardening and about, remembering from about the age of 7. I'm not going to
Mm.
hazard a guess to your age at the moment, Tony, but it's a few years ago. And, and
One
obviously,
or two.
one or two. Obviously, you have got that passion for gardening. But what is your main actual reason? Because if it was just gardening, you grow flowers or, anything else. Why do you actually garden?
Um, when you first get introduced to something, like for me, it was my grandfather, okay? And it tends to be you get interested in what you were sort of first introduced to. And then you learn all the other stuff. Like I got all house plants around me. This all come in at a later stage.
Goes over
Yeah, exactly. So, um, but my initial thing was vegetable gardening because that's what I learnt
time.
with him, and um, it helped us later on because my son and myself are both celiac.
Yeah,
So we go through absolutely tons of veg. So it was also a way to make sure that they were eating quality foods, and I was, and not having to fork out all of the money on store bought stuff that you had no guarantee where it came from. But that was a later on decision, if you get my drift. But it was mainly because of my grandfather. I learned that way, and that's what I got interested in because of that.
and it's just never ending. We're just always learning, aren't we?
Yeah,
It's,
every day.
I was talking to someone about this the other day, and you just said about houseplants. You start to look into one thing, and it's a rabbit hole, and you go in, and there are so many different. It's like, do you remember at school you used to do a decision tree? Yes or
Yeah,
no?
yeah.
So yeah, it's like that, and there's no end to it. It just
No,
keeps going, and it's
I
just
mean, I've got plants here that are really rare, and I have others. Like this is a Thai constellation,
yeah,
not just a monstera. And so I've rather than just getting standard house plants, I've got all the rare aroids and and philodendrons and things.
yeah,
So that was where I went with that.
yeah,
But people don't see this side of things. They see the gardening because that's what's on the channel.
yeah.
Um, but you do expand off. You go right. Okay, I want to do something now with this, and then I go and do that, and then I plant flowers, and now they're creeping into the
Yeah,
allotment. And
yeah,
it's just how it is, and
yeah.
eventually. But it's like anything else. Like if you ask a bricklayer, he'll have a load of work in his own house to do, but he never gets round to it. My back garden's a right mess,
Oh,
but the
mine
allotment
too.
and everything
Yeah,
looks great.
yeah, it's true. It's true. But yeah, that's what keeps us interested though, isn't it? It's just there's always
Absolutely.
something to learn. We never know it all. Some people think they do, but they don't.
Nope.
If you did think you did, you've
As
had a
soon as
really
you think you know everything, then you've lost the battle because
exactly.
nature will come
Give
there and
up.
show you don't know nothing.
All right then. So growing, lifelong growing. What made you actually start your channel and when did you start it, Tony? It was a while ago.
Started my channel in 2007. So it's a I was
Wow,
one of the very first gardening channels on YouTube.
yeah, 17
Um,
years. Woo.
yeah. So um, initially, Google started in 2005, but it wasn't bought out. Sorry, YouTube started in 2005, wasn't bought out until 2007 by Google, and that was when I actually started the channel. But back then, it was mainly to store video files because, like, I was filming on a camcorder. The files were taking up tons of space on
Oh,
drives,
yeah,
and they
yeah.
were really expensive.
Mm,
And back then I just couldn't afford it.
yeah.
So when I heard about YouTube, this new thing that Google had just bought, I thought, brilliant. Before it wasn't worth doing because it was like a dating site. So, but when Google bought YouTube and then started doing what they were doing, I thought, right, okay, this is a perfect place just to store this footage so that I didn't have to keep spending money on memory cards.
Yeah.
And then I did that for about 5 years. And in that 5 years, I started picking up subscribers. I thought, well, there's something here.
Mm.
So I got rid of everything and started the channel properly as Tony's allotment in 2012.
Mm.
So that's when I started making content to help other people.
Yeah, yeah, and I bet you when you first started getting those subscribers, especially back then, I mean, there's such
No
a
one,
difference now. No, no
yeah,
one didn't know
no
what was.
one knew what YouTube was back then, and it was really small. When you told people you were on YouTube, they were like, "What's that?" You
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
So I've seen a lot of changes,
yeah,
but so like. It's funny because I see new people coming onto YouTube now when they're moaning like 3 months later that that they haven't hit 1,000 subscribers or something, and that took me 5 years to get.
yeah,
They just
yeah.
don't know. You know,
I know,
but
but
it's accumulative.
yeah,
YouTube's accumulative. You don't see anything for the first few years, really, and then all of a sudden, your skill set increases, and then you sort of take off.
yeah. I'm not going to make any comment on that because I've also
you
been round the block a few times. But yeah,
well,
yeah,
when you look at it, Jane, you're well ahead of where I was because, like I said, I only had 1,000 subscribers at 5 years.
yeah.
So,
But the whole nature of it has changed, hasn't it? I remember when, because I started, I think my first video was 2015. To Yeah, because it's my 8th anniversary coming up,
yeah,
and I watched at the time. I've said this before. There was you. There was Sean. I think Nigel came along round
yeah.
about the same time, and I can't remember if Terry was already on, but
No,
you
Terry didn't come on till a bit later, I
bit
think.
later. But
Mm,
you with the channels that if you had any sort of gardening queries whatsoever, you were the UK gardening channels. It wasn't
yeah,
like, whereas now there's such a vast array of people, and it's brilliant. It's everybody, everything is covered, but there's no
yeah, and
sort of 1, 2 place to go.
yeah, exactly. And it's not just that because everybody has different variations of doing
Yeah.
something. Like, I mean, I've been growing potatoes in containers for nearly 15 years.
Mm.
I was probably one of the very first people to do it. And now everybody's doing it and they're all putting twists on it,
Yeah,
but they're
yeah,
getting fantastic results.
yeah,
And that's the great thing is getting that experiment sort of running
yeah,
that you can only get if enough people are doing it.
yeah, yeah. Spreading the bug in a good
Yeah.
way. Spreading a
Yeah,
good bug in
absolutely.
a good way. Right then, Tony. Again, you might have already touched on this, but what's your first garden memory?
So again, with my grandfather, first memory. In fact, I talk about this in something a bit later on. But my first garden memory is stabbing my fingers on gooseberry thorns. Um, so he had an allotment that was on a really steep hill, and right at the top was his shed, a big tin shack, and he'd send me down like all these terraces right to the bottom where the gooseberry bushes were and tell me to go and pick all these gooseberries, and I'd have thorn after thorn in my thumb. And that's my very first memory of being on there at 7 years old. So that was 42 years ago.
Oh my goodness me. Was it when you'd been naughty? Was that like a punishment? Okay, off you go.
No, he used to bark orders at me all the time. It's just the way it was back then.
Yeah,
Get
yeah.
down there and pick the gooseberries for me,
Oh,
and
yeah,
but
yeah,
I just absolutely loved it. And I was always with my grandfather up the allotment
yeah.
from that point on. Like,
It obviously made an impression if you can remember it all these years later, so
yeah, and at that time, I mean, he died when I was around about 10,
mm.
but within that sort of 3 years, he really sort of sowed the seeds of gardening in me, and obviously it's come to where we are now.
So you could say you are his legacy.
I'm definitely his legacy.
It's just
Yeah.
think how proud he'd be.
And
Yeah,
and by that respect, everybody else is benefiting from his experience because obviously I'm now helping others.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, he might come into the next question, or maybe not. But who or what has influenced your gardening style?
Yeah, it's definitely my grandfather. But although he's the one who really got me into gardening and the way I do it, but I'm quite an experimenter with things. So um, when I first got to this site and I people are asking me what I wanted all these buckets for, and I was telling them I'm going to grow my spuds in them, and they were looking at me like I had three heads or something, because they were so used to digging trenches the traditional way and hoeing them up and everything else.
Mm.
You know, what's this guy think he's doing? Putting him in a bucket, like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
But it's like you'd be surprised how many of them are now growing in buckets. But so I like to experiment with things, and I like to. Uh, I'll take advice from people in the local area, and they might say, "Oh, don't grow this because of that."
yeah.
Well, to me, then that is like the
It's been
like sort
tried
of
and tested. Yeah.
it's been tried and tested. Brian gonna listen to that because I haven't done it,
Right.
and it's like a challenge to me. When people told me that you know you can grow grapes no problem, but they have to be planted indoors. Well,
All
I've got
right.
grapevines growing outside,
Yeah.
and my ones in the tunnel are actually planted outside and brought into the tunnel.
Yeah.
So, there's lots of different things with experiments that I'll do, and I'd rather find out for myself because you'll learn so much more by failing than you will by succeeding all the time.
And quite a few people, they will fail and think, "Oh, that's it. I tried that." And
Yeah.
to say to them, if you're not prepared to put up with that, maybe gardening's not for you because it's trial and error. And
I
yet,
know 1,001 ways to fail. So, but it's just like I said, you'll fail, 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 and then that one succeeds. And like, right,
how
and
good is
and
that
then
when it succeeds? Yeah.
yeah, and then you alter the way you do things, and then you test from there on, and that's just the way it is. And that excites me because you're not governed by a set of rules. You know.
Yeah. Okay. It sounds to me like you've already got the ideal gardening space, Tony, but if you were starting again, what would your ideal gardening space be?
The ideal garden space would be my own land, so I haven't got my ideal gardening space. Um, it'd be quite a large place, but I'd love a walled garden as well. You know,
Oh, yes. Oh, definitely.
so like the old sort of Victorian kitchen gardens,
Grow
something like that would
peaches
be
up the
absolutely.
walls. Oh,
You could just spally all your apples, pears, and things around the walls. That's attracting all the heat of the sun then through the day and irradiating it back out. Really, really, rarely do you suffer with frost damage because of that. Um, you know, Ideally that'd be my go-to thing, and then some massive greenhouses like you'd get down in Kew or something like
oh,
that.
it's
But
amazing. Yeah, Kew Gardens.
yeah,
I'll do.
perfect.
I'm sure.
If they want to move out, I'd gladly take
I'm
ownership.
sure. I'm sure. I'm sure you could make. If anyone could make that happen, Tony, it would be you. It would be you. Right. Okay. Then. Quick surprise question: if you had a superpower, would you rather be able to fly or be able to make yourself invisible?
Invisible, definitely,
Okay. Oh, right. Okay. I'm looking
definitely.
at there. That's going to get okay. Right. Okay. Is there anything that the viewers might not know about you that you would like to share?
um,
I mean,
I
you've
was
been
once
around a
Paul
while.
Potts' boss.
You've what?
Hmm? I was once Paul Potts' boss, the opera singer.
Oh,
So that's probably something that most people don't know.
no, no. But how? Doing what? Doing his
So when he went through X Factor,
yeah,
he was
yeah.
my assistant manager in Carphone Warehouse, and I managed the store that he
Oh,
that he worked at.
okay.
So I was his boss at the time he was
All
going through
right.
X Factor, and needless to say, I went on to do gardening. He went on to do singing, and he earns a lot more money than I do. But hey, it's the way it is, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Does he send you a Christmas card? I bet he doesn't.
Do you know, I haven't spoken to him. I spoke to him about 2 years after the fact, but I haven't seen him since.
Mm.
So, but that was
Okay.
a long time ago now.
Yeah,
God, I've been in the fire service 16 years, so it
yeah, that's what
was
I was thinking.
probably 18 years ago, maybe 19 years ago.
Yeah, yeah. But you still well, you're both still going, and that's a good thing.
Well, I'm
Right
still
then.
alive.
Which is a good thing. Let's look at the positive. That's good. That's good. Right. Last question for you, Tony. What advice would you give to someone starting out? Now, this can be with a garden, This can be with a channel. Any little nuggets that might just help someone who's just right at the beginning.
I'll give you a nugget for each of them then.
Okay.
When you're on the garden, always turn your back to the work.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if you know, because you'll get overwhelmed looking at it all the time and you never see what you've actually done because you're passing it. So if, like, for argument's sake, if you dig or you no dig whatever, turn your back to the work and work backwards, because then you can, all you see is work that you've already completed, and it's a psychological trick that will stop you getting overwhelmed with the amount of work that you need to do.
Yeah.
And as far as the channel goes, is make videos that people want to watch, not what you think they want to watch, because what you think they want to watch are completely different to what people are actually watching.
Yeah.
So those are the two little nuggets I would pass on.
I think that's really good. So have a little look round to see what's turning up and what's doing well out there. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
it's.
it's a tricky place,
I
isn't
think the thing is, people get into the thing, oh, this is what I'm doing today,
it? Mm,
and invariably they wonder then why they don't grow.
yeah.
And a lot of the times, and excuse me for being blunt, no one cares who you are.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
especially when they don't know you, you know. So you have to have something they want to come and watch. And if you're making a video about what you're doing here, just as a, you know, constantly, you know, a one-off type of thing, like you know, we all do tours and what have you. But if you were doing that on a constant basis, you've got nothing that the algorithm can serve up to these people if they're searching for it.
Yeah. Because that algorithm, don't get me started. Yeah, you could be another
Right, all
70
I'll say to
years.
you, this one's for you then, Jane.
Okay.
Change the word algorithm to audience, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then you'll be able to figure that out, because you know, I mean, it doesn't matter. We all think it's against us, but because
You
we
know
all
what?
have up and down
That
days.
is a third nugget. And I will take that nugget to heart because I think that is a really good nugget. so, so thank you. No, that's really valuable. That's really valuable. Right. Okay. Okay, Tony. I must admit to the viewers that we have just had an issue, because just as you asked me my question, we got cut off. So I've had a little glimmer of what it's going to be. So I have had a little bit of time to think about it. So, Tony, would you like to ask me the question again?
Yes, my question was, where do you see your garden and your channel within 10 years' time?
And I mean, that's two questions. It's not, you were asked for one, but you did give two nuggets. So I will allow you the two questions. I
It's the
think,
same question. It's not two questions. It's the same
no
question.
question, it's true. It's true. Um, it health, providing health is okay and fitness is okay. I see my garden going on for as long as it is just part of what I do. It's part of me. It's, I don't know. I can see my garden going on, but I would like to aim to be more self-sufficient. So as you were saying, with being concerned about stuff that you actually buy in the supermarkets. I still
Yeah.
do go to the supermarkets and everything. I'd like to be able to provide as much as I possibly can, not just for me and Mike, but my daughters, they always like to come up and get stuff and everything. So yeah, so I'd like to be more self-sufficient. As far as the channel goes, and this is the big question, it's I don't who knows where YouTube is going to be in a few years. We just don't know, do we? There are so many different things coming up. So I think as far as the channel goes, yes, I have times where I just want to pack it all in. I think, what am I doing here? I should be doing something more productive. But I absolutely love the interaction with the viewers. I love the community. We've been knocking around, as we keep saying, for a long time. We've met so many lovely people. And the fact that we can now meet up at garden shows and things like that, is something. I would think that we're not just virtual friends,
Yeah.
we're a proper community of people, actual people. So I think, yeah, despite wanting to give up about once a month, I would like the channel to grow more, but I would like the idea as well that it's giving me already to be able to diversify and go off and do different things. And my writing for Kitchen Garden magazine, that's
Yeah,
something
no.
I thought I would never do, and I it was never on the cards, but I'm absolutely loving it. So it can open doors to lots of different things, and
Well, who
I'm
would have thought
excited to see. Yeah,
that
yeah,
I'd be
I know
doing
what
what
this
I'm
is.
doing, you know?
Well,
So
exactly, and you just I bet you, Tony, when you started all those years ago, would you have thought that you would still be doing it now?
no, not for a million days.
No.
Um, and I certainly wouldn't have thought I'd be doing the other stuff I'm doing now.
Well,
Like you said,
this
it does open doors for you, you know?
yeah, yeah. Well, this leads me back to you now then. Back to you. What would what would you like? What are you proud of? What would you like to share with the viewers? It's not just necessarily what they will see if they tune into a YouTube video. What's been going on in the background?
So there's loads of stuff been going on, and for those who have watched my channel for any length of time will know that last year I didn't do a lot on the channel, mainly because I was writing another book which is due out very shortly, and also been putting a lot of time into writing for the website and things like that, but mainly the book.
Mm.
And this book, you know, as we've already spoken about, my grandfather was a big factor in my life as far as gardening goes. So this book was a bit of a love-hate relationship for me because it was dedicated to my grandfather and I wanted to make sure
Oh,
it was perfect.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
and it'll probably be the last book I write in a very long time because it was stressful, I can tell you.
In what way?
This one was really stressful because there's just been, I just wanted to try and take the information that you would normally find in a gardening book, and rather than having the same information regurgitated time and time again, like for argument's sake, if you were going to grow brassicas and the sort of kales and cabbage, it's the same information, but then they just put a different heading in the book, and then they just regurgitate the information, and I didn't
Right.
want
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
So part of the book is split down when we get into part of the book of the for the vegetables. It's talking about families of vegetables, and we talk about that and what to do there rather than individual things and making a book bigger. I wanted to condense the information so that someone can just go there, flip open a page, and go, "That's what I need to do." And so
And
it took a lot of work.
that's the simplified bit though, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
if
So
people think there's all those different things they need to know about your basic plant families and what the conditions are needed for each of those. And yeah,
yeah.
it's a win-win.
So, so this is the book
Hey,
Simplify Vegetable Gardening,
fantastic.
and it's being produced by Cool Springs Press and the Quattro Group,
Yeah.
and it's absolutely beautiful, as you can see here. I think
Up a bit,
they've done
up a bit.
a fantastic
Yay.
job.
Oh yes.
They've done a really good job on the book.
Yeah.
It's come back to me so many times for revisions, and they've said like this photo isn't good enough and things like that. But the book, it talks about, I think it's quite relevant as well with what's going on in the world. So the first chapter in this book there
Yeah. Yeah.
is the growing importance of vegetables, the
Right. Okay.
perfect trio, nature, science, and you, optimizing plant growth, optimizing plant health, optimizing plant nutrition, and then the vegetable gardening groups, which is chapter 6, which is what I was just discussing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So in the book, you'll see if we go into like any sort of like the allium family here,
Mm.
okay, um, we got all sorts of charts, and you're showing you know what you need to do, so like a quick chart, so that if like you've got like pea that has got mildew or something like that, you can go straight to pea in here, look at the issue you have, mildew,
Yeah.
and it's going to give you something or an action plan in which to deal with that. It covers pests, disease, and it wouldn't be one of my books unless it had a section on composting, so it has that in there as well. So
Yeah.
but yeah, the book is available for pre-order now, Jane, and I'll give you a link for that if you don't mind.
Yeah. No problem.
And there's been a slight delay. Now, the book was supposed to have been launched on the 14th of February,
Oh,
Valentine's Day, but it looks like it's going to be towards the end of February because um, uh, Cool Springs Press and the Quattro Group have told me that they're being printed in Asia, and of course, all this problem in Yemen now. The
yours.
books were supposed to be coming through the Suez Canal, and it
Oh,
can't now. It's got to take the long way round.
exactly.
So because of that, and then the time they distribute them out to all the shops and things like that, they're looking at the end around about the 28th of February, something like that.
But that's still an
So
absolute perfect time for the gardening season.
oh yeah, it's not going to be, it's not going to be to the point where people are not going to be able to utilize the
No,
information in the book and
no.
everything else. And the great thing about it, the way you've written this book, is that it doesn't matter where you are in your season, you're going to be able to think, right, okay, what do I need? What's the best fertilizer for these sort of groups of plants? What can I do here? Do I need to do a pH test? Do I need to add minerals? And all of this sort of stuff. And then it'll also take you around all the pests and issues and what you can do to sort of combat those as well. So it really is a good book for people to take into the garden and use,
Yeah,
because when they see something, they can just flip straight to that page
yeah.
and this is what I need to do. And they've got that action plan.
That's it.
Um, and it is it is awkward, and like I said, the dedication is to my grandfather. That's right in the beginning of the book, and it's why I've really sort of put my heart and soul into this book. But
Yeah.
like I said, it has been a bit of a love-hate relationship. It's just taken so much of my time,
I yeah,
that
it
even
must
last year,
be exhausting. It must
it
be
was.
absolutely exhausting. But I bet
And
it
that was
probably
why I couldn't do all the videoing as well as the book is just, it was just too much.
yeah, yeah, but that is really lovely actually, because that sweeps us right back to the beginning of our chat about your grandfather and talking
Yeah.
about legacies. Yeah, what a lovely thing, what a lovely thing
And
to have dedicated to him.
yeah, and the thing is, like I said, everybody know who benefits from my videos are benefiting from the seeds he sowed right back then. So his legacy is going on,
Oh,
which is good.
he'd be thrilled. I'm sure wherever he is now, he's
Yeah.
absolutely thrilled and he wouldn't dream of sending you down to pick those gooseberries anymore.
He'd still send me down there.
He probably would. Okay, that's lovely, Tony. Thank you so much for being on.
Thank you,
It's
Jane.
been, I mean, we've known each other for a long time, but it's been really nice to actually find out a little bit more background, especially about Paul Potts. Paul Potts.
I know
Who'd
it's
have thought? Who'd have
he
thought?
he could have sent me a few quid, couldn't he?
Well, it could. There you go. There you go. Okay, I'm going to put this video. Obviously, will go on the playlist. I'm going to put the link to Tony's channel, as if you haven't been there already. But the links to Tony's
Thank you.
socials will be below. And Tony, if you send me a link to your book, that'll be below as well. But
Brilliant. I will do. Thank you, Jane.
until next time, we shall see you again very soon. Thank you, Tony, and bye for now. Bye.
Thanks all. Bye bye. Bye.